Hi. So yesterday I got a visit from my father's widow, Debbie Stairs, and Debbie dropped off a whole load of pictures and family items for me and for Booth and Krista, my siblings. And so I am going to be going through this collection of things and doing a little show and tell series. Okay, and I hope you enjoy it. And I'm going to be talking about people who you're probably related to, if you're related to me somehow, or at least you know about, and that you might have stories to tell about. So as I'm going through, feel free to make your own videos and chime in or comment on my video and things like that. Anyway, here we go, and I hope you enjoy the first video of this series. This is the bundle of things that Debbie Stairs brought over to me yesterday, and so I'm going to do a little series about what is in here and the connections that these things have to my extended family and so on. So this will be really fun. And I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you so much, Debbie, for bringing this stuff over to me. I really appreciate it. And okay, so here we go. Hi. So in the first video of this series, I'm going to be reading a letter. I'll be reading a letter from my great aunt Ethel Grand to my mother, who was Linda Grand at the time and who was married to my father later, the next year after this letter was received. And my mother was living on Division Street at the time, and so this is it. And I also have some other things to say about Ethel because she was such an inspiring person to me personally, and I actually happen to have some things that belong to Ethel from my mother. When my mother passed away in 2004, I inherited some jewelry from Ethel, and I have a lot to say about it. So I'm going to show you some of that jewelry and tell you a little bit about that too. So first, the letter. Ethel Grand was my great aunt. She was my grandfather Kernan Grand's sister, and at the time of this letter she was living in Welland and she was a school teacher. My mother at the time, Linda Grand, was living on Division Street in Kingston, and it was 1969, so it was a year before my parents were married. My parents were married in May of 1970. I don't know if my parents were engaged or not at the time, but they were either engaged or shortly to be engaged. And this letter is really sweet. It has a lot of practical things in it and shows how practical Aunt Ethel was. Throughout my life, my mother had a fondness for Aunt Ethel. She was very generous-hearted. She was also always sending parcels out to people for birthdays and for Christmas and so on. She sent us parcels. I know when I visited her once at her house, I was wandering around and I found a room full of parcels that were to be sent out to people. So I know that she, and in fact in this letter she talks about buying things for somebody and sending things out to people. Her school teacher routine is sort of displayed also in this letter, the way that she planned for things and her outfits and so on. So that's really nice. And so I will read the letter now. Oh, but first I wanted to show this picture of Aunt Ethel with a few of her young nephews, which is such a sweet picture, and you can tell that she is really child-centered. She likes children, and I guess that was the school teacher in her too, as well as the aunt. And she, this is an example of a painting by Ethel. I want to be able to see more paintings by Aunt Ethel because I know that she was an accomplished painter. She had a lot of work, and I think that work probably belongs to a lot of her nieces and nephews. I know my uncle Joe Grand has some of her work, or at least one piece. Anyway, so that's just a wish of mine to see more of her paintings. Anyway, so this is the letter. So this letter is dated Sunday, March 23rd, 1969, and Welland, Ontario. Dear Linda, well, I enjoyed my visit at your place in Odessa. And Odessa is actually where my grandmother, Florence Grand, lived, my mother's mother. And I don't know who else would have been living there at the time, but she had my uncles. I had 4 uncles, so some of them might have been living there at the time because they were younger than Mum. There was quite a large crowd got on at Kingston for Toronto. While in Toronto, I bought 2 sleeping outfits for the O'Grady baby. They were Chanel in aqua and yellow. I also bought a bigger one called a blanket sleeper in blue. Then I got some blouses and socks for 5 of the small ones. I sent it up by bus Saturday. I came home Friday as I wanted to dust the place and get the laundry done and scrub and wax the living room, kitchen, and bathroom. Also, I got baking and cooking done today, Sunday. I cooked beef stew and onion, carrots, and potatoes. This should do until Wednesday or Thursday. Also, I baked a cake and bran muffins. I may not eat any of these, but it is always handy. It never goes to waste. I have washed about 8 sweaters since Friday and ironed them, but I am going to put them into a plastic bag with mothballs. Also, I did 2 light quilts in my new ordinary washer. They are drying in the basement. I am just going slowly, cleaning and putting away, as I don't want too much to do when the weather gets too hot. Crocuses are in bloom up the street. My tulips are up about 3 inches along the side of the house. While in Toronto on Wednesday and Thursday, I bought a nice cherry red windbreaker for myself on sale to wear with navy slacks or skirt. Also, my leather boots came, and they are over my knees, soft leather black. I am keeping them. Last night I called Eganville. Auntie Florence called the baby. Kevin Joseph weighed 8 pounds, 1 ounce. Likely you will be busy the next 2 weeks. I will be glad when you get into that higher apartment. How do you like your dishes? Did you get a bed and a table and chairs? When you get moved, tell me about your move and about your new things. This afternoon, there was a fashion show up at Notre Dame. I gave my ticket to one of the Stewart girls. They say it was very nice. Have just prepared my day book for school today for all of the next week. We are preparing for a citywide concert, music, in May, and also one in music at our school, and we are inviting the parents on home and school night. We gave out our midterm reports just before the holiday. Hope you have conquered your cold. Write when you move, if you have time. Sincerely, Ethel, 151 Church West, Welland, Ontario, phone 732-4378. And another thing that I know about Ethel is that she had an enormous jewelry collection for some reason. I think it was because she had so many students, and she was a teacher for so many years that she was gifted a lot of pieces by her students. And I have a fraction of her jewelry collection. And she had lots of nieces and nephews. I'm sure that they gave her jewelry too. But at some point between 1991 and 1993 approximately, my mother went for a trip somewhere, I think to Welland, and she came back with, I'd say, 7 large cardboard boxes filled with jewelry from Ethel. I've never seen a jewelry collection bigger than hers in my life. I can't imagine. The reason that I have these is I inherited them in some respect because they actually went to my sister after my father gave them to my sister after my mother died in 2004. But I'd already seen a lot of the jewelry, and I'd gone through it a little bit after the fact with my mother after she received it. And so I recognized the pieces when my sister sent my mother's jewelry box to me in 2014, about 10 years after my mother died. And so I recognized these pieces as being not part of my mother's collection, but part of this massive collection that Ethel had. And some of these pieces are just so sweet. I'm going to zoom in that maybe some people will see these pieces and recognize them as things that they've given to her. Some of the pieces I can see, this is very unusual. It's seeds that have been drilled and woven. And some of these things I could see a student giving a teacher, at the end of a school year. These brooches and earrings, there is something very special about. You can tell the age of them. Like that is, I don't know where I would date that, but I would want to sort of put it maybe in the 50s. This flower brooch, I'd say maybe 60s. I don't know. These earrings are some of my favorites. I've converted these earrings. They used to be clip-on, but I wanted to use them myself, so I put posts on them. But you can see how that design is very, I'd say, 1950s, maybe 60s, and then these two. And some of these are very much the same kind of idea, like multiple strands of chain with beads on them. It must have been popular at some point, but they're very lovely and clasped instead of, or like just hooks instead of clasps. This is a particularly nice piece. All costume jewelry, of course, I think. Although I don't know, some of her other pieces might have been very valuable. I really like this dramatic pearl piece here. I've worn all of these things before myself. This is a good piece, but I recognize it from when it was in my mother's closet. There was a piece of bark on it, like from a tree, and it was painted with the same paint as this, same colors. So that piece is incomplete. But anyway, maybe someone watching this has some information about these pieces or recognizes them. I don't know if anyone else has parts of Ethel Grant's collection of jewelry or not. I think after my father died, years later, he was selling the house, so he must have given away a lot of her jewelry, or a lot of my mother's jewelry, and as a consequence, Ethel's jewelry, because there was just so much of it. But it could be that some other people have pieces of hers also. So if you know anything about these pieces, or you have any other information, feel free to share. It's so fun to share this with you. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a really good day.